Hello and welcome to ENCORE, the arts and culture show here on France 24. I'm Jade Barker, great to have you with us. Coming up in today's programme. To celebrate or not to celebrate, that is the question. The answer, it appears, is yes, as a host of events are held in the UK to mark Shakespeare's 450th anniversary. Plus, we'll take you to the French village where impressionism bloomed. Giverny was the former home of Claude Monet. Every spring, it still attracts tens of thousands of people who come to see the beautiful gardens that inspired the iconic artist. And he's been overshadowed for many years by the likes of Manet and Matisse. But now French painter Henri Le Sidaner is finally getting his time in the limelight with the first major retrospective of his work. First, ever been in a pickle or had too much of a good thing? Well, you may not realise this, but both of those phrases were coined hundreds of years ago by Shakespeare. This week marks the 450th anniversary of the wordsmith, with a host of events taking place across Britain, from the Globe's theatre production of Hamlet to King Lear at the National Theatre, and an exhibition dedicated to the literary genius. There's no shortage of places for fans to get their Shakespeare fill. The artistic director of the Globe says the reason Shakespeare still holds such a special place in the heart of the nation is because his works still resonates today.
The incredible thing about Shakespeare's work is it's the most wonderful marriage of the public and the private. He can talk to a group of people, a theatre audience, about how people live together, about how they make societies together, and about how they look after each other and care for each other. He can also talk privately to an individual. He can whisper to you in your ear about love, or about grief, or about loss, or about jealousy, or about rage, or about ingratitude, or a whole plethora of subjects, and comfort you and console you and let you know that someone's been to that place before you have.
Next, the town of Giverny, northwest of Paris, is known around the world for its picturesque water lily-filled gardens, which master impressionist Claude Monet immortalised in his best-loved works. Every spring, tens of thousands of visitors head to the pretty village to check out Monet's inspiration. Olivia Salazar-Winspear takes us on a tour.
From afar, it looks like any other French village, yet up close it's clear that Giverny has become something of a pilgrimage for visitors who flock here in droves. It was here that Claude Monet, the founding father of Impressionism, spent half his life. The daily crowds still take the local mayor by surprise.
We can have up to 7,000 visitors a day, 700,000 in a year. When it's really at its record heights, we've got 14 visitors for every one of our 500 residents.
International visitors are mainly here to see the gardens, but also the house in which the painter lived with his family for 43 years. It served as a painting studio too, and was where some of the masterpieces of Impressionism were created. 88 years later, the interiors have hardly changed.
I'm quite old now, but it's somewhere that I've been wanting to come for a very long time.
From April onwards, these are some of the most photographed flower beds in France, but the Holy Grail is the lily pond, a mythical spot and part of art history.
It was here that the famous Water Lily series was born. He did his studies here and then completed them in the studio.
News of Monet's success drew other painters to Giverny, including some from across the globe, many from the US. Today, their fellow artists and art lovers follow in their footsteps.
What do I think of it? It's wonderful. It is. It was more than I thought it would be. Yes.
And the final stop on this tour is a tiny cemetery with the flower-strewn tombstone of the master of light, shade and reflections.
Well, while Claude Monet has become a household name, there's another French artist whose work has become somewhat forgotten. Henri Le Sidaner was actually a friend of Monet's, who was one of his many admirers of the intimate post-impressionist style. And while the painter enjoyed great success during his lifetime, he was later overshadowed by the likes of Monet himself, Matisse and Picasso. Now, though, he's finally getting his time in the limelight with the first major retrospective of Le Sidaner's work spread over 4 sites in the north of France.
French painter Henri Le Sidaner enjoyed great success during his lifetime, counting such greats as Auguste Rodin and Claude Monet among his friends and admirers. But then Manet, Matisse and Picasso came along, and Le Sidaner was pushed to the sidelines, almost forgotten.
After the war, modernism took over, and historians focused on modernism and completely forgot the artists who had been successful during the First World War and between the wars.
But while France lost interest in Le Sidaner, foreign buyers continued to purchase his paintings. His greatest fans were, and still are, across the Channel and across the Atlantic.
C'est véritablement grâce aux collectionneurs anglais et américains.
It's really thanks to British and American collectors that his work continued to survive. He himself was always very pleased that his works left France.
Around 200 of his paintings have now made it back to France for Le Sidaner's first major retrospective. They're spread over 4 sites in the north of the country, where the painter lived and worked for most of his life. His great-grandson is the curator of the exhibitions. Although few paintings remain in the family, memories of the painter do.
He was a painter of light touches. He'd approach the canvas, paint a few strokes, go back 5 meters to see the effect, and then approach again. We remember those kind of anecdotes, but otherwise we don't talk much about him.
This retrospective could make art lovers talk a bit more about Le Sidaner, and perhaps even his native France will grant him the spot among her great 20th century artists that many feel he deserves.
To an exhibition of a rather different kind now, that's a kid's dream come true. If you were a fan of playing the game Cowboys and Indians when you were a child, imagine this. An entire museum filled with ancient objects from the indigenous people who lived on the Great Plains of North America, complete with face painting and drawing lessons. Rochelle Harrison-Pless checks it out.
For young fans of the Cowboys and Indians game, the new exhibition on the Plains Indians at Paris's Quai Branly Museum is a real treat.
Today I'm dressed as a cowboy because I've come to see the cowboy exhibition. I mean, the Cowboys and Indians exhibition.
On display, delicate detailed embroideries, ceremonial costumes and extravagant feather headdresses. Plus sculptures in stone, shell and wood. A fascinating universe showcasing the aesthetic traditions of the Plains Indians from the 16th to the 20th century.
Well, I think the Native American Indians had really good taste in colours, and I think their drawings are really pretty.
Behind this door, the illustrator of the comic book series Giverny is teaching these youngsters how to draw his beloved Native American character. Something that requires a great deal of observation and concentration.
Here is his feather, this is his headband, this is his neck, and that's his smile.
Victoria, meanwhile, has wandered into a face painting workshop and is getting made up, just like the wife of Big Chief White Cloud. Children's activities at the exhibition are all free, with the collection on show at the Quai Branly until the 20th of July.
Now, when you visit Paris, what's on top of your to-do list, apart from a visit to the Quai Branly, perhaps? Going up the Eiffel Tower, cruise on the River Seine? Well, many tourists are adding cooking classes to their itinerary, whether it's to learn to bake a baguette with finesse or how to sniff out a good camembert. Many are going in search of some French culinary skills. Catherine Clifford has more.
A honeymoon in the city of love. For this American couple, it's the best thing since sliced bread.
For a normal baguette,
they've signed up to learn how to bake the symbolic French bread with that magical French touch.
Take the dough and let it fall like that. Okay? Good. Okay.
We love coming here and eating the French baguettes, and you can't get anything like this back in the United States, so it's nice to actually see how it's done, too.
Fresh from the oven, tourists from all over the world gather around the table at this cooking school to break breads and devour the fruit of their labour, hoping to take back the secret in their suitcases.
I hope you will do some baguette back home.
He's going to be cooking baguettes for me, yeah. I'm going to make him make them at home.
Crossing cobbled streets to a nearby fromagerie, tourists are enjoying another gastronomic experience.
We're off on a tour of France. That's what's great about cheese. With each one, we discover a different region.
Discovering when it comes to fromage, the French and the Brazilians are like chalk and cheese.
If a Brazilian were to see those, they'd say, they've all gone moldy and throw them in the bin.
This is special mold.
I love the taste. It's a bit of a shock for us, the taste, the smell and everything. So it's a real discovery.
This manufacturer is one of the last in Paris to refine his own cheese, right here in the shop's cellar.
We're so lucky in France to have farmers and manufacturers who still work with raw milk. And my role is to pass on and showcase this expertise, which is dying out.
Le fromage et la baguette, now sites to be ticked off alongside Paris's finest monuments.
That brings us to the end of today's show. Thanks for your company. Don't forget you can get more on any of the stories we've mentioned on our website and watch any of the shows again. And please don't hesitate to get in touch with your comments and questions via our social networks. See you at the same place, same time for more culture tomorrow.